Hi guys, welcome back or welcome to Study with Azaria, and today we're going to be looking at how to multiply fractions. Before we start the video, here is the brain teaser of the day. Stick around to the end of the video to see the answers displayed. So with multiplying fractions, if you've seen the previous videos on how to add and subtract fractions, multiplying fractions is actually much easier than the other functions, and we're going to see why. So here is the practice question. So a third times 2/5. This is usually what would be given to you and you'd have to find the answer. So the first and pretty much the final step is just to multiply across. You times the numerators by each other and you times the denominators by each other. So we have 1 times 2, I'm just writing it out in a longer form so we know what we're doing, and then we have 3 times 5. So in our answer, for the numerator, it's going to be 1 times 2, which is 2, and for the denominator, it's simply 3 times 5, which is 15. So that gives us an answer of 2/15. And the final checkup step, really, that you should apply to all fractions is just to check that you don't have to simplify your answer. In this case, we didn't because it was 2/15. They didn't share any common factors, but always check that your answer is simplified because in some certain questions, they will specify that they need that correct answer. Moving on from that example, if you didn't understand the concept of how to multiply fractions, feel free to go back and watch the video again, but here are some practice questions we can do to apply what we've just learnt. In the first example, I wrote out the long form of what we were actually doing. If you feel that's better to help you visualise it in your head on what you're actually meant to be doing to the fractions, go ahead, and if you feel like you can do it mentally, that's also perfectly fine. However, at some point you will want to be able to do these mentally to be as quick as possible at these sort of questions. As you can see for this fourth example, after multiplying across, we found that we had to simplify our answer, and yet again, make sure you check your answers to make sure you can simplify them or not, because you will have to get the simplified version to get the question correct. Now we've got the other practice questions out of the way, I wanted to introduce a quicker simplifying method. So as you can see in one of the examples, after getting our answer, we had to simplify it again. This method is going to usually be used for larger numbers, such as the ones we have on the screen. So let's take the example 28 over 16 times 8 over 20. And this is a point to mention, when multiplying fractions, they don't always have to be in their simplest form, meaning that the numerator doesn't always have to be smaller than the denominator. So the first step for this method is to always check if any of the top numbers, the numerators, or the denominators, the lower numbers, share any factors. And if you don't know what a factor is, it's a number that can go into another number. So for example, 2 is a factor of 6 because 2 can go to 6. So for this example, instantly we can see that 8 and 16 share factors, if that makes sense. A number can go into both 8 and 16. So you always want to aim for the largest number that can go into both of these numbers. And it could be 2, it could be 4, but the largest number that can go into 8 and 16 is 8. After finding the shared factor that they both have, you then divide the numbers by the factor. So we have 8, and we're going to divide it by 8, another 8, because it's the factor, which gives us 1. And then we have 16, and the factor is 8. So we need to do 16 divided by 8, which gives us 2. So you cross out the previous numbers and write down their simplified form. Then we can see it on the other side as well. 20 and 28 both share the same factor of 4. So 20 divided by 4 gave us 5, so that's why we crossed out the 20 and put the 5. And then 28 divided by 4 gave us 7, so that's why we crossed out the 28 and put a 7. This whole method is also known as simplifying, but doing it before we find our total rather than afterwards. And it may seem quite a long process at first, but as you get more confident in the questions, it becomes a bit more natural and a lot quicker. And as you can see, after we've done all of that crossing out and simplifying, we just multiply normally across again as usual. Now, looking at the other method which we were doing when we just multiplied across without any of the crossing out and simplifying, if we use the exact same question we used as before, you can see it's a lot longer and harder process. we're having to times 28 by 8 and 16 by 20 and simplifying that further and further until we get the simplest fraction. And that can lead to quite a few mistakes and quite large numbers, simply because you're just making the whole question harder for yourself when you could have simplified the smaller numbers at the beginning. Now we're going to have a quick look at multiplying with fractions. This section isn't any harder than multiplying with fractions. We're just going to use our skills that we used from previous videos, like turning mixed fractions to improper fractions. So you can't times a mixed fraction in its normal form in multiplying fractions. You always have to convert it to an improper fraction. So for this question, we've converted 1 and 2/9 into 11/9 and then continued as usual to multiply. If you don't know how to convert between fractions, feel free to check out the video, which will appear on the screen or be in the description box. But moving on from that, again, the second step is just to multiply normally or to do any simplifying processes, because we always want to check if any of the denominators share a factor. So with these fractions, we can see that 11 and 22 share a factor, which is 11. So 11 divided by 11 is 1, and 22 divided by 11 is 2. So we cross them out and put their simplified numbers. And then 3 and 9 also share a factor. So 3 and 9 share the factor of 3. So we're going to divide each of them by 3 and put down their simplified versions. Then after that, with the new numbers that you have, you just multiply across with that, and our answer is 1/6. So here are some practice questions to round up everything that we've learnt today. Make sure you pay attention to simplifying before multiplying normally, and check in your answers at the end with the total to make sure that they're completely simplified. And finally, making sure that all your fractions when multiplying are improper fractions or simple fractions. Now, I'll be writing on the screen and you can see the answers, or you can pause now and come back to the answers later. Good luck, and don't worry, there's always plenty of time to practice. Here are the answers to the brain teaser, and thank you so much for watching till the end of this video. Please remember to subscribe and click the notification bell to see when I post, and until next time, thank you.